Previously on The Devil on G-String. It's not pus! Then Tokita yelled. Yuki directed a faint smile at the girl behind her. Yuki put on innocent airs, but her heart knew better. No slay could blind Haru to her best friend's strange behavior.
Yuki,
Haru let silence speak for her. Her pained expression wounded Yuki's heart. Nevertheless, Yuki calmly continued. Haru shook her head. Usami is looking for a source of evil. She simply can't accept the fact that the Tokita she knew could undergo such a metamorphosis without some dark catalyst. Then again, the belief in evil is sometimes one's only hope of salvation. Usami. Was it on a whim that I rested my hands on Usami's shoulders? She didn't shake me off. Instead, she silently accepted my kindness. It all began 2 years ago, with a single email. The sender identified himself as Mawu. He had quite thoroughly investigated Yuki for being no more than a common stalker. He knew that she was an illegitimate child, and that her mother had passed away. Mawu, who had put forth an investigation into her past that would spark envy in even the best private detective, had begun to entice Yuki. After a few electronic exchanges, Yuki left her hometown alone for Tomonbetsu City, running to meet this most intriguing Mawu. After that day, about once a month, Yuki would secretly meet with Mawu. He typically introduced her to his acquaintances in Tomonbetsu City, but oddly enough, his meetings also often took her to the coast of the Sea of Japan, Fukui, and a small village in Niigata. Yuki was able to meet a great many people during these rendezvous. Chechens who ruled the Moscow black market, extremist Muslim jihadists. Mawu often received briefcases from fishermen at the wharf, but he never explained what they held. Yuki never intended to ask, why did it have to turn out like this? The answer lied in Yuki's own weakness. She didn't have the courage to tell her father, a police officer, that she was involved with a man who had triggered the car bombing in the Southern District. She didn't have the courage to tell Haru either, for fear of being hated. Besides, her weakness was responsible for her desire for vengeance in the first place. What would Yuki gain by threatening and stealing from a director? Mau said these words. Is it really all right to just bottle up your feelings? He spurred her on.
理事長という最も制裁を受けるべき相手を放置したまま優秀な警察官になれるとでも？
姉さんはまさか。
Yuki said, as she donned her usual gentle smile.
あなたは大事な妹よ。
The negotiator lied. Yuki flatly declared her intention to kill Mizuha's own father.
私には覚悟が足りなかったのよ。たった500万くらいで許してあげようだなって甘かった。だから春に見破られたんだわ。
The ecstasy and the madness in Yuki's face reflected in her sister's eyes.
姉さん、本気？あなたの父親が私と母さんを家から追い出したとき、なんて言ったか知ってる？知らないわよね。
Go die in the cold. Yuki remembered it clearly. In the cold, under the falling snow, they had been thrown out with no more than the clothes on their backs. Mizuha may be trembling in fear now, but her pain is nothing compared to the freezing air and the uncertainty of that day. And so it continues. Greetings, my name is Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of the Devil on G-string. So I'm still reeling a little bit from last episode's Great Betrayal. And I, frankly, want to see how this particular story arc concludes. I'm not expecting good things, but maybe I'll be proven wrong. And I really don't have anything more to say other than that, because what else could I say? I'm just eager to see what happens. A winter wonderland, waiting just beyond an oak and beach-lined promenade. This hill in the eastern district of Tomonbetsu City was Mizuha and Yuki's favorite spot to play.
お姉ちゃん、この子になんて名前つける？
They had spent 2 hours making a child-sized snowman.
水葉が名前つけなさいよ。あなたがほとんど作ったんだから。
And made me do most of the work in an alternate timeline.
お姉ちゃんにつけてほしいの。
Mizuha always copped a bratty attitude around her parents, but today, with Yuki, she wore a carefree smile.
じゃあ、
Yuki began with crossed arms.
雪太郎は？雪太郎か。かわいいな。やっぱり違うのがいい。何にするの？水葉の好きな男の子の名前にしたい。そんなのやだよ。恥ずかしいよ。
The cold, fluffy snow piled up on the sisters' shoulders. Snowflakes landed on the tips of their shoes, gradually melting into the warmth of their shoes. Wait, I read shoes twice. I meant to say toes. Perhaps not unlike the endlessly dancing white weather, Mizuha's laughter refused to subside. This was an old, happy memory. They had played with all their hearts until nightfall. They didn't want to go home. They didn't want to leave this sense of unity for their typically divided family. What awaited them was a strange household with 2 mothers. Yuki never bothered to consider how her parents and Mizuha's had come to live together until much later. Nevertheless, it seemed Yuki's mother was important to the Shiratori household. Even in her earliest memories, Yuki remembers her mother doling out orders as her father's personal assistant.
水葉ね、お姉ちゃんと結婚するんだ。
Her sister's sweet voice made its way to Yuki's ears. It was an unforgettably serene sensation.
法律でね、姉妹は結婚できないんだって。でも、水葉とお姉ちゃんは違くて、とにか く結婚できるんだよ。そうね。私が男だったらよかったわね。
As if that's ever stopped certain people. She was an adorable little sister. The snowflakes caught in her eyelashes glittered like teardrops, framing her innocent smile.
お姉ちゃん、水葉のこと好き？ええ、もちろん。水葉も大好き。
Miza shuffled her feet about, then gathered up the displaced snow in her hands.
どうしたの
Miza smiled mischievously as she packed a tiny snowball. Incoming!
ちょっと、まさか私にぶつけようっていうの？そんなことしないよ。これは、雪太郎のご飯だよ。ご飯って。
Now, don't make the little guy a cannibal. He's made out of snow, you know. Miza was a sweet little girl. Her diligent preparation of a snowman's meal was no less than dazzling to her cool, mature older sister.
ねえねえ、おむすびの中に何入れたらいい？やっぱり梅干しかな。
Oh, thank God. It's just, wait. No, you didn't say what it was.
梅干しなんてないでしょ。
Well, rice and apricots definitely, would definitely improve it. The meal, I mean.
じゃあ、何入れる？言葉を込めてあげなさい。言葉？
Oh, I see. We're gonna make him literally eat words.
そう。言葉はとっても強いの。強いの？剣は剣よりも強しっていうくらいだから、絶対よ。千の銃剣よりも、3つの敵意ある新聞の方が怖いとも言うし。お姉ちゃんは物知りだからな。
That is, a startlingly wise observation. Not gonna lie. Mizaha's tiny head nodded over and over. Yuki dearly loved her little puppy of a sister.
梅干しを入れても、しばらくしたらなくなっちゃうでしょ？うん。梅干しも死んじゃう。でも、言葉は決してなくならないわ。私たちが覚えている限り。おお、そっかー。たとえ雪太郎が溶けちゃっても、私たちが残した言葉は永遠になくならないでしょ？なるほど。言葉ってとっても強いんだね。
All I'm getting from this is that words are indigestible. That they would cause you a serious case of indigestion.
水葉も何かあったらまず話すのよ。どれだけ怖い人でも話せば分かってくれるから。パパとママも？
Yuki smirked at that. Yuki was still young and innocent. She had yet to understand the critical role of violence, following in the shadows of words.
もちろんよ。さあ、雪太郎にご飯をあげましょう。うん。もう言葉は決まってるんだ。何？教えて。
Her little sister cheerfully answered.
水葉はいつでも姉さんの味方だよって。
Yuki couldn't help but crack a smile.
ちょっと。そんな言葉を雪だるまに食べさせないでよ。
Their laughter diffused into the winter sky. The sun gradually sank behind the horizon, dimming the earth, but the sisters' radiance was not so easily wrested. Not the slightest hint of their coming parting was present in those dazzling winter days. I have a sneaking suspicion that those words are definitely going to get eaten by somebody soon enough. In a pretty tragic way, too. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. The men who had been chasing Tokita reported in, and she had apparently last been seen with Shiratori near the docks in the Western District. The sounds of the night and the wave crashing against the wharf were interrupted by the ringing of my cell phone.
浅井さん、今どちらです？
At the harbor.
なるほど。ユキはおそらくどこかの倉庫の中にいます。
Why do you think that?
つい先ほど、私の携帯に画像付きでメールが届きました。
What was the picture?
水葉です。手を後ろに縛られていました。
Not even her sister's gone and taken her hostage. Well, was there a caption or anything?
理事長を連れて、今浅井さんがいる倉庫付近まで来いと。
And what if we don't?
お分かりでしょう。
She'll kill Shiratori.
とにかく急いでそちらに伺います。
That I
理事
don't
長も
think
写
she'll
真を見て
do.
承知してくださいました。
Alright. In the meantime, we'll look for the warehouse Tokita's in and get a perimeter set up. What is Tokita planning? Thing is, I don't really, from what I'm observing, I don't think she's got much plans that she can make at this point. She's cornered. If anything, this looks to me like she's making a last stand. She's not really going to kill Shiratori, is she? Is she doing all this just to get back at the director? God damn it, I didn't mean to skip that. Dozens of rushing footsteps beat at the ground outside the warehouse. Light leaked out from the inside, so it was likely quite easy to locate Yuki and Mizuha among the port's many storage buildings. I didn't even think about the window lights. Yeah, that would be a dead giveaway, wouldn't it? A few short moments later, men were already kicking at the door and shouting. The warehouse's iron door held fast and strong. They were nothing but a gang of hoodlums. Unlike the police, they didn't have the tools necessary to force their way inside.
姉さん、どうするの？何？もう逃げられないわよ。そうかしらね。
She said as she shrugged her shoulders rebelliously.
逃げ切ってみせるわよ。どうやって？正面から堂々とよ。
Oh, really now? This I gotta see.
そんなことができるのよ。言葉は力だって教えたでしょ。
So what, are you gonna literally just talk the mob of Yakuza to... Are you just gonna talk them to death or something? Convince them to go jump in the harbor? And let you just waltz on out of here? Mizuha bit her lip after realizing her sister's intentions. Yuki idly looked down at her as she considered her options for the coming negotiation. It would be simple. Her opponents were a gaggle of amateurs. The director would be too worried about his precious reputation to call the police. Even considering Haru's raw logic, Yuki still had her nemesis bested soundly when it came to persuasive skill. The only problem would be her final bastion of innocence. Once Yuki commits a crime herself, she has turned down a dark path from which there is no return. Her father's golden record would be forever tarnished if his daughter became a criminal. It is for this reason that Yuki apologized to her father, Tokita Akihiro, in her heart. She desperately wished she could have at least said a word of parting to him, but the march of time would permit no such thing.
姉さん、お願い。考え直して。
Mizuha spoke directly to the hesitation in Yuki's heart. However, her pleading, sycophantic expression only reminded Yuki of her filthy biological father, and the hatred within her burned away what barriers held her resolve in check.
サイは投げられたのよ。
Around an hour later, Usami showed up as the director in town. Took you long enough, Jesus, a whole hour? What were you doing? The sea breeze swept up her long hair and tousled it about. That one there, Usami. See the faint light coming from the window?
間違いなさそうですね。 どうやって入ったんでしょうか。
Usami's question was right on the mark, but I didn't have an answer.
一体今度は何だっていうのかね。
The director flared up at me despite his exhausted appearance.
真犯人はユキだって？あの娘の母親はうちの会社の金を横領したんだぞ。本来なら警察に突き出してやるところを追放するだけで許してやったんだ。
Very generous of you. Merciful. She should be thanking me, not holding some grudge, he says with a sigh.
まったく。犯罪者の娘も犯罪者か。
Careful, you don't want to indict yourself now. The director was lucky we have such a strong wind this morning. The eyes peeking at him from behind Usami's long, windswept bangs bore all the horror of Azai Gonzos. I interrupted his whining. That's great, Director. You didn't even get the police involved when you were the victim of the embezzlement. That probably means you'll want to keep this little case under wraps too, right?
ああ、君だってそうだろ?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. If we keep the events of this awful night a secret, even Tokita might have a future. Not that Tokita's future is of any importance to me. Yes, I know, you gotta remind us that you're an asshole. It'd just be a waste of an able mind. I mean, if I build my connections with her now, she'll be of use to me in the future.
ユキに連絡します。
Yeah. Oh, use the device you used before, so I can hear too. Usami quickly took out her phone and began to fit it with the widget. The phone rang.
遅かったわね、ハル。ユキ、そこにいるんだな。ええ。今度こそちゃんと倉庫の中にいるわ。小細工はなしよ、ハル。理事長は連れてきたんでしょうね。
The man himself spoke up in response.
おい、ユキ。貴様、一体自分が誰を相手にしているのか分かっているんだろうな。
Do you realize that she knows who she's screwing with?
愛人がいないと何もできない。解消なしの男でしょ。
なんだと？
Yuki imagined his red face, flushed with anger. As she provoked him, she listened to the ambient sounds in the background. The roaring sound of the sea breeze announced that he was indeed outside the warehouse. You know, I just thought of something. If her objective is still to get the director killed, and we don't know where her partner went. Now do we? If he's got a gun, like a sniper rifle or something, and he's a good distance away from where they're hiding, then the director could be shot could be shot still.
Haru, 立てこもり犯にいきなり要求を聞いてはいけないわ。まずは仲良くなってからって言いたいのか。そう。今の私はあなたの知らない人なのよ。
This is probably just a diversion to build up time so the shooter could get in position. Right?
ユキはユキだろう。ミズハもきっと悲しんでる。私もそうだ。未だに信じられない。
Yuki laughs at Haru's emotional voice. If she doesn't, the guilt will tear her apart.
まるでコントね、ハル。お前たちは完全に包囲されてる。ほら、田舎のお母さんも泣いているぞって。
I could make a joke here, but honestly, I'm not going to.
ユキ、
少し黙ってよ、ハル。あまり感情をぶつけてくると犯人が興奮して取り返しのつかないことになるわよ。
She looks at her bound sister with an icy glare.
私の要求を言うわ、ハル。
Yuki suddenly says,
今から1時間以内に。
それだけじゃないんだろう。
さすがにわかる？
逃げるだけならわざわざ理事長を呼んだりしない。
話が早くて助かるわ。
理事長を車に乗せてどこに行こうって言うんだ。
さあ、少なくとも理事長にとって楽しいドライブではなさそうね。
Okay, so if you're not gonna get him shot, you're just gonna kidnap him or something? Yuki could hear Haru's breathing stop over the phone.
わかった？質問はない？これから先、車が届くまで一切の交渉は打ち切るわ。
Negotiators tried to do what they can to get a reaction out of the criminal. After all, if the criminal is completely unresponsive, negotiations wouldn't have much of a leg to stand on. Yuki knows that, and plans to avoid all unnecessary contact with Haru.
待ってユキ、要求を飲まなかったらどうするつもりだ？
あら、何のための人質だと思ってるの？水葉は置物じゃないのよ。
嘘はよすんだ。ユキにそんな真似はできない。
何？勝手に決めつけてるのよ。
Yuki feigned composure, but the anger inside her was erupting into a mighty tempest.
あなたが私の何を知っているっていうの？逆に聞くけど、ハルだって私に魔王のことは教えなかったじゃない？いい？誰にだって深い闇があるのよ。親にも友達にも相談できないようなストレスを抱えているの。あなただってそうでしょ？だから友達だからとかそういう甘ったるい考えはやめてもらえる？
Following that final provocation, Haru's voice changed entirely.
魔王のことは教えなかっただと。
Yuki had finally let slip her connection to Mao. It was unimportant, though. Haru's connection to him, her absurd bloodlust, had been a case in Yuki's point. It was likely her deepest darkness, one of those secrets known only to herself.
私は魔王を知っているわ。ええ、宿を借りたことすらある仲よ。彼は歪んでいるけれど信念を持った男だわ。あなたと同じようにね。
The gauntlet had been thrown.
わかったよ。
Haru said as her tension noticeably doubled.
お前が魔王と関わっているのであれば、そして魔王を肯定するのであれば。
怖いわね。
Despite her sarcasm, Yuki's smile twitched.
とにかく1時間以内よ。遅れたら勇者の大切な仲間が傷つくことになるから急いでね。
いいだろう。
Haru punctuated her response by hanging up on Yuki.
姉さん。
The younger sister was uneasy. Nonetheless, she merely looked up at Yuki as if she were worried for her sake. Haru had allowed her anger to show through her poker face. A display of tension during a negotiation can excite the criminal.
自分の心配をしたら、水葉。今の私の話を聞いていたでしょ？
Fear consumed Mizuha's eyes, and Yuki was satisfied. That woman has got to be kidding. I tried to snap Usami out of the trance she's been in since the call ended.
昔ユキはお母さんと二人でひっそり暮らしていた時のことを面白おかしく話してくれました。頼れる親戚もなく北陸の庄村にある町工場で住み込みで働いていたそうです。
お金がなくて着るものにも困るありさまでしたが、いつでもお母さんが助けてくれました。
Sounds familiar, somehow. Yeah, sounds kind of like how you grew up, huh?
ある時、村にダムを誘致するしないで村中が賛成派と反対派に分かれ揉めたことがありました。ユキのお母さんは建設会社に勤めていた経験から工事の必要性を感じ、賛成派に回ったそうです。しかし結果的にダムの建設は中止になりました。すると賛成に票を投じていた人たちはどうなったと思います？
They, been made into public pariahs, I assume. Alright, I get it already. I'm no good at these kinds of stories. Shook my head, not wanting to hear more. I had a similar experience. Family standing is important in a small village. Tokita and her mother were ostracized, right?
ええ。ユキたち親子の住む家も火事で全焼したそうですよ。
Damn. Oh, come on. That's just way too far out there.
いいえ、ユキは放火だと言っていました。
Not that any legal ramifications could have addressed the root of the problem. Still, if what the director said was true, she had it coming to her. Everything was fine until she embezzled money from his company, right?
ユキの話では横領の事実はなかったそうです。それについてはとても信憑性のある話を聞きました。
Oh, really now? Go on. You can't say for certain that she wasn't lying to you, or that she had her facts straight in the first place.
それでもユキに非はありません。
It doesn't matter whose fault it was, Usami. Good people have bad luck too. There's no point in holding grudges so long for every little thing. Tell that to your devil man half. What are we arguing about? Let's just try to stick to the problem at hand.
はい。
We closed in on each other and talked in whispers. What do we know? Tokita demanded a car. She plans on taking the director hostage and running away somewhere. Her ultimate objective is likely to kill him.
まさしくその通りですね。
Then what's our best course of action? Prepare a car as demanded?
ひとまずは。
Usami thought silently for a moment. Alright, I'll get on it. It shouldn't take anywhere near an hour. I arranged for the car to get here immediately. Yuki broke the silence as she twirled her hair in boredom.
結局京介君にはあのことは伝えられたの？
今そんなことはどうだっていいじゃない。
今が最後のチャンスになるかもしれないっていうのに。
Mizuha stared straight into Yuki. It was an unshakably resolute stare, one that defied the gravity of her situation. You really want her to hook up with your boss indirectly. That's the one thing, you know, that's the one thing that's been bothering me about. That's one detail about this whole thing that's been kind of bothering me for a little while now. Is everything that I've seen in the story so far points to Kyosuke and Mau being the same person, being like a split personality and that sort of thing. That to me seems kind of undeniable at this point. So what I don't understand is why pair your sister up with basically your boss, who you know is pretty capable of some pretty heinous things if he wants to be, unless you are aware of his split personality issue or something. And you know that that your boss's other personality is pretty damn tame by comparison to the one that you dealt with on a regular basis. That's the only way that this would make sense to me. Why you'd be willing to even entertain the idea of hooking those two up. That your sister would have an effect on Kyosuke to where it would suppress Mao or something stupid like that. Otherwise, I can't think of a reason why you would do this. Why you would have tried to play along with this whole thing and just hook those two up. Whatever, maybe I'll get an answer sooner than I think. Mizuha stared straight into Yuki. It was an unshakably resolute stare, one that defied the gravity of her situation.
そのマフラー、暖かい？
Mizuha nodded.
いつあげたのか覚えてる？
私が風邪をひいた時。
嬉しかった？
Mizuha's idle stare transformed into a blissful expression. Her eyes narrowed as she reminisced on days gone by. She was weak to old times. Yuki suddenly posed a question to her sister, snapping her out of her trance.
どうして頼りの一つもくれなかったの？
それはだからどこに住んでるのかも知らなかったから。
探してくれてもよかったじゃない？
ごめんなさい。
私の母さんが肺炎で倒れた時、マフラーのことを思い出したわ。
Mizuha interrupted her with a sob.
私にあげなければよかった。
Yuki sneered at Mizuha as tears filled her eyes.
だってあなたは私を探さないで父親のもとでぬくぬくしていたんでしょ？
そんなつもりは。
今回だってそうじゃない。水葉は私の誘いを断った。あなたさえ協力してくれればもっと楽に理事長を脅迫できたのよ。つまりあなたは私より父親を選んだってこと。
姉さん、もうやめてよ。こんなの姉さんらしくないよ。
水葉こそ情に訴えるのはやめてよ。私はもうあなたと雪だるまを作ってた頃の私じゃないのよ。
Mizuha looked down and desperately continued.
そんなに父さんが憎いの？
当たり前でしょ。
Yuki said as her eyes snapped open.
一時の感情に身を任せて復讐しているわけじゃないの。あいつに対する恨みと憎しみは時が経つにつれて消えるどころかどんどん強くなっていったわ。
でも姉さんたちが家を出て行ったのは理由が。
横領の話？私の母さんがそんなことするはずないでしょ。それはあなたの父親の内部工作よ。平たく言えば愛人に手切れを言い渡したかっただけ。
Mao had helped her investigate the circumstances surrounding her exile about 1 year ago. And how do you know that Mao didn't lie to you or feed you some doctored leads regarding that investigation? Come to think of it, it was likely at that moment, the moment she sold herself to the devil, that the wheels of her revenge had begun to spin.
家を追い出された当時、母さんが病気がちだったのは覚えてる？
Mizuha didn't respond. She was likely too young to remember those days, but Yuki would never forget. She would never forget the blood on her mother's lips and the hands as she coughed out her lungs, or the smiling face she used to tell Yuki that everything was fine. How could that man throw a woman in that condition out into the cold?
そりゃあ分かってるわよ。 愛人だもの。いつかは切られる運命にあったんでしょうね。でも不倫にも筋ってものがあるでしょう。何も路頭に迷わせなくてもいいじゃない。
Yuki knew complaining to Mizuha about her mother's pain and humiliation wouldn't do any good, but she couldn't help herself.
あいつが母さんを殺したも同然なの。それは分かってよ、水葉。
何もこんなことしなくても。
Yuki gave up. Mizuha may be her sister, but she's still an outsider. There's no way she could understand. Even Yuki couldn't muster the empathy to consider other people's problems to be her own. Once upon a time, each of those countless convicts had told her a life story, but she had listened as an unconcerned bystander. Yuki decided to respond leniently.
復讐が問題の解決にならないことは知っているわ。でもね、救いにはなるのよ。復讐こそが唯一の救いだと思い込んでしまったら、もう後には引けないわ。
As if to punctuate the end of her thought, the phone rang. Yuki quickly drew in a breath and exhaled before answering.
早かったわね、春。
望み通り車は用意した。
上出来ね。すぐ出られるようにエンジンはかけっぱなしにしておいてちょうだい。
本当に逃げられると思っているのか。
カーチェイスをするつもりはないわよ。絶対に追ってこないでね。追っ手の影でも見えればその場で海にでも突っ込むわよ。
正気じゃないな。
正気でこんなことができると思う？
たとえ私たちを振り切ったとしてもだ。警察がユキを追うぞ。
でしょうね。今度こそ警察を頼らない理由がないもの。
一生逃げるつもりか。今日捕まるか明日捕まるかって怯えながら毎日暮らすのか。
あらあら、容赦はしないとか言っておきながらまだ説得しようって言うの？甘いんじゃないの
Haru had apparently ignored Yuki's provocation, as she countered with a deadly blow.
ユキを追うのはユキのお父さんだぞ。
そんなはずないじゃない。
She answered coldly.
娘が罪を犯したら捜査から外されるわ。父さんもまた田舎に逆戻りよ。
Conflict of interest.
よくわかってるじゃないか。もう一度言う。今ならまだことは公にはならない。まだやり直せる。今すぐそこから出てくるんだ。
同行したとして魔王の仲間である私はどうなるの？あなたや京介君のお仲間さんたちに暴行されるんじゃないの？
そんなことはない。
You hesitated. Haru's faltering voice betrayed her hesitance. But even if Haru had a change of heart, the Sonoyama men outside would wring every last drop of blood from Yuki. They've been chasing Mawu for a good while now, too.
話はこれまでよ。次の要求を言うわ。
Yuki glimpsed at Mizuha. Her sister was already lost for words, dark with despair. I listened to Kita's demands over the receiver.
そこの理事長に質問があるの。
なんだ、何が聞きたい？
重要なことよ。正直に答えてね。
She prefaced herself with that before continuing.
私と母さんが北陸の小さな村に住んでいた時、うちの家に火を放った男を知らないかしら。
Oh, damn.
何を言ってんのかわからん。
I am not liking your reaction, Director.
いいえ、知っているはずよ。
知らんもんは知らん。
本当の目的は母さんが持っていたあなたの裏帳簿よね。おかげで何もかも燃えちゃったわ。 よかったわね。
The director shook his head frantically, obviously in a panic.
あの時は村の人も私たちに冷たかったからろくに調べもなかったわ。家がなくなったおかげで母さんの病状も悪化した。この意味がわかる？
It means whoever was responsible for that fire took years off Tokida's mother's life.
教えなさい。あなたの手のものだっていうのは分かっているのよ。
死を放てなどと命じてはいない。
Thanks for the indirect admission.
盗みに入れって命じたんでしょ。でも見つからなくてめんどくさいから火をつけた。こんなところかしら。
違う。あれはお前たちを心配して。そうだ。片倉君にはお前たち親子の近況を聞きに行けと。
Oh, come on, man. Don't bullshit us now. Especially after what you just admitted to.
片倉っていうのね。あなたの会社の社員？大層出世したんじゃない？
取締役の一人だ。それがどうした？
Wait a minute. Katakura. That was the guy that she murdered in Shiratori's route, wasn't it?
決まってるじゃない。片倉もここに呼びなさい。共犯の中なんだから身近に置いているんでしょ。
バカを言うな。放火の証拠なんてないだろう。それに今何時だと思っているんだ。無関係な人間を巻き込むな。
Wait a minute. If she didn't know his name the guy's name until now, then how did she figure it out towards the beginning of Shiratori's route? How did she get that information? Did Mao give it to her or something?
無関係かどうかは私が決めるの。わからない？ここは私の法廷なのよ。
Her voice was cold enough to freeze one's blood. Sir, I think it would be best to comply with her demands for now.
しかし。
Look, if need be, I can get my father to erase certain things. You know what I mean? I just made up some bullshit, but it seemed to do the job just nicely.
いやもうええな。
He reluctantly agreed.
部下への連絡が終わったら中に入ってきてもらえる？
なぜだ？
嫌なの。
Tokida's voice was brimming with rage.
あなたが来れば水葉を解放してあげるわ。
Sweat trickled from the director's forehead.
実の娘の命がかかってるのよ。あなたみたいな鬼畜でもさすがに水葉は見捨てられないでしょ。
待て。私に何をする気だ？
それは来てのお楽しみよ。さあ早くして。
He looked at me as if looking for help. I ain't lifting a finger for you. Well, I don't have the right to force him into it. He blinks over and over, and his hands ball into a clumsy fist.
わかった。
待ってください。
Usami grabs the director's shoulder with her free hand.
危険すぎます。
しかし。
春、何のつもり？
At Yuki's prompting, Usami declares her thoughts with seemingly absolute confidence.
ユキ、お前に水葉を傷つけられるはずがない。これはつまり人質が人質としての意味をなさないということだ。
そう思ってるんだ。
It's a risky gamble, but I do agree with you. I really don't think she has it in her to actually harm Mizuha.
だからこそ理事長をそちらに行かせるわけにはいかない。
I see. She can't kill Shiratori, but she can kill the director. If she had the director held hostage instead of her own sister, she could feasibly make outrageous demands.
なるほど。さすがは春ね。 私の思惑をあっさりと見破ってくれる。でも誤解をしているようだからちょっと教えてあげるわ。
何？
The sound of flesh being harshly beaten jumped from the receiver. And perfectly coinciding with that... Okay, I was half wrong. She is willing to inflict bodily harm, but kill her? I don't think she could go that far. Shiratori's screams followed suit. Tokia's cruelty manifested itself in Shiratori's gasps.
Yuki.
Usami's brows tensed, and after some time she began to speak. Hold the line! She won't kill her outright.
今のは何だ？
頬を殴ったの。ちょうど今倉庫の中で古びた釘を見つけたわ。
やめるんだ。
私の言うことをおとなしく聞いてくれればやめてあげる。
Someone nearby had had enough and jumped into the conversation.
わかった。今行くから娘を解放してくれ。
いいパパじゃない。その優しさを少しは私にも分けてほしかったものだわ。
I sighed to speak up and mustered the calmest voice I could. Hey, Tokita. You're not lying when you say you'll release Shiratori if we hand over the director, are you?
もちろんよ。信じて。
No thanks. I'd love to. You just don't seem too trustworthy right now.
さすがは京介くんね。初めて会った時からあなたと私は似た者同士だと思っていたわ。
You mean like the way we think?
いいえ。心に複雑な闇を抱えているという意味で。
Alright, look. I've had enough of this shit. Trump card time. Either Shiratori comes out, or we're coming in.
強行突入ってこと？
Well, let's see. We got a couple dozen men out here who could wrestle bulls. So I'm gonna say yes, I do. And I'll also say that if it comes to that, you're through, Tokita.
でしょうね。そういうところ、ますます気に入ったわ。
Good one, Tokita. We'll see who's laughing when these guys drag you out of hiding. Actually, we already have a route into the warehouse. There's a window up on the side. Get a ladder. It's about 5 yards off the ground, but that shouldn't be a problem if we can get a few men standing on each other's shoulders. I guess that counts as a ladder. Still, that should be a last resort.
どう、京介くん。私と組まない？私はそれなりに役に立つと思うのだけれど。
Sure. Sounds great, honestly. We can hammer out the specifics once you come out of there.
そうね。じゃあ、理事長を引き渡してちょうだい。
ダメです。
Usami stopped the director a second time as he started toward the warehouse's entrance.
話してくれ。もう私が行くしかないんだ。
いけません。犯人はあなたを殺害するつもりなんですよ。
Usami finally called Tokita a criminal. It was likely a measure she took to kill her personal feelings toward her friend.
強情ね、ハル。そこの男は最低の類の人間なのよ。
たとえ最低の人間だとして見殺しにはできない。
Tokita gave a short, nasal laugh.
あなたはだから友達が少ないのよ。そうやって正義風を吹き回しているとね、みんなうさんくさいと思うものなのよ。
とにかく人質の交換はしない。
そうやって強硬な姿勢を取り続けていると最悪の事態が待っているわよ。
ダメなものはダメだ。理事長、下がってください。
Usami managed to stare the director down as he took 2 steps back.
優秀なネゴシエーターね。
Tokia remarked sarcastically.
また連絡するわ。
Not going to use that rusty nail on Shiratori? Usami let her arm holding the phone slide down as a sigh escaped her lips. Are you sure we made the right call there, Usami? I think so.
理事長を人質に取られたら終わりです。
I realize that, but we can't just let Shiratori die.
ユキは水葉に危害を加えたりしません。
She kinda already did, but I think what you meant to say is, she wouldn't kill her. Why are you still acting so naive? She just hit Shiratori a few seconds ago.
いいえ、あれはハッタリです。
How can you say that? We heard the whole thing, didn't we?
よく考えてください。もしユキが本当に水葉の頬を平手でぶったのであれば、バチンという音と同時に水葉の悲鳴が上がるはずがありません。
She's right. If Shiratori really had been smacked, she'd have gone speechless from the shock.
おそらく水葉の目の前で自分の両手を叩いただけでしょう。猫だましみたいなものです。水葉は驚いて悲鳴を上げただけです。
Some people really do let out a noise if you just suddenly slap them in the face. I could cite myself as an example. Which would mean
犯人にはまだ良心が残っているということです。
still, huh?
今のはユキのミスです。そんなハッタリをしてこなければ我々も二の足を踏むものを。
But as it played out, she practically told us she won't be hurting Shiratori anytime soon.
先ほども言ったように、これはつまり人質が人質として機能していないということです。
Which means we've got the edge.
ええ。
Usami nodded as she stared at the warehouse's wall.
あそこに窓がありますね。
Looks like things have taken a turn for the worse, Yuki thought. She paced around Mizuha with her arms folded. As Yuki had realized from the onset, her hostage was a weak excuse for one at best. She should have known Haru would realize this too. The fact that she had been able to recognize Yuki's assault as a bluff only compounded the problem. She needed to force a hostage swap quickly, before things got any worse. Mizuha, who had kept silent until now, suddenly raised her head. Her eyes were utterly vacant.
さっきは驚かせてごめんね。
Yuki subconsciously allowed her guilt to squeeze out an apology. She may have been jealous, envious of her sister's comfortable upbringing, but she was not yet prepared to cross the line of violence against this innocent girl. Mizuha muttered a quiet response before returning her gaze to the floor. Yuki was nervous about the upcoming raid. As long as they know she won't harm Mizuha, they might force their way in at any time. They'll most likely try to enter via the warehouse window. If she puts up a fight at the bottleneck there, she might be able to drive one or two men. But these opponents were muscle from head to toe. Each man she knocked down would stand right back up and try again. Haru hadn't wasted any time. A bulky black shadow stood menacingly still at the window. What do I do now? Yuki looked down at Mizuha. Mizuha returned her gaze. She said in a sickeningly sweet voice. Yuki would have to cross that line. What's going on in there? I asked one of Gonzo's subordinates for a quick report. One of the smaller men had been given a boost up to the window and was peeking through.
よく見えませんね。窓ぶち壊しましょうか？
I casually looked over to Usami.
いいんですか？
Of course. Oh, I never told you. Sorry. This warehouse is managed by the Yuzai Corporation.
それはすごい偶然ですね。
Yes, a coincidence. Mm-hmm. Now that I think about it, it is. Why did Tokita choose this place anyway? Well, whatever, it doesn't matter. I beg to differ. Alright, on 3. 1, 2.
ちょっとお待ちを。
What?
ユキからメールです。
A text message? Why didn't she just call you?
画像が添付されています。これは。
Usami's expression grew severe. I reflexively peeked at Usami's cell phone. What the? Shiratori had been cut by a sharp object. A stream of blood trickled down her thigh. The wound looked shallow, but the meaning behind that fresh blood brought a shudder to my spine. Tokita, that fucking... She really did it. All that time at school must have made me go soft. Sisters? Give me a break. My heart froze up. Hey, Usami. Let's call off the raid for now. She was likely shocked, speechless. She just stared wide-eyed at her phone's LCD. The phone began to ring with a clamor. Usami's dumbfounded gaze stayed perfectly still as her hand pulled the phone up to her ear.
画像見てくれた？
ああ。
私が本気だってこと分かってもらえたかしら？
I would argue that this is still a bluff. It's a very shallow wound. Usami didn't answer, so I spoke up in her place. People will do anything when they're cornered, huh?
そうね。ひどく腐った気分だわ。生まれ変わるってこういうことなのかも。
You're going to hell, Tokita.
あなたもでしょ？
I may have let my guard down too much around this woman. As my disappointment in Tokita peaked, the director called out to her from behind me.
事情は分かった。もう勘弁してくれ、ユキ。
Tokita's cruelty to the director wasn't abated in the least by his submissive behavior. She had no mercy, even for a man who'd gone pale seeing his daughter's blood shed.
だったらとっとと来てもらえるかしら？
ああ、今行く。
片倉への連絡は済んだ？
先ほど済ませた。30分以内に来るそうだ。
Usami's arm didn't shoot out to stop him this time. She just watched the director's back as he trudged toward the warehouse.
おかしい。
Usami quietly muttered something. It was true when she said she felt awful. Yuki cut the call and looked at the wound on Mizuha's thigh.
これでいいんだよね、姉さん。
You inflicted the wound on yourself?
ありがとう。
Yuki struggled to say. A few moments earlier. The very moment that Yuki had seen the shadow at the window, Mizuha suddenly moaned. Look, Nisan. Yuki's eyes shot open. Mizuha had stood up by herself despite her hands being bound, and had edged over to one of the many steel containers in the warehouse. Yuki nearly screamed out in an attempt to stop her, but it was too late. Mizuha raised her thigh to the sharp corner of the container and dropped herself onto it. The sharp steel corner mercilessly tore at her bare leg. Without even crying out in pain, Mizuha turned to address her sister. Will you trust me already? Without even thinking, Yuki had snapped an image of her with her camera phone and sent it to Haru. She felt downright awful. Yuki untied the rope binding Mizuha and inspected her wound.
大丈夫よ。もう血は止まっているみたい。
もう痛くないから安心して。
それにしてもなぜ？
Mizuha shook her head.
姉さんに味方するって決めたの。
嘘をつかないで。今さら遅すぎるわよ。
Despite her words, Yuki hated herself for not trusting in her sister.
私はあなたの父親を殺そうっていうのよ。それに加担するっていうの？
Mizuha nodded as if she had given up on everything.
納得がいかないわ。
だって姉さんのすることだから。私姉さんのこと好きだから。
気持ち悪いこと言わないでよ。
考えたの、さっきからずっと。
何を？
今までの私、怖がりで思ってることも口に出せなくて、子供っぽい私のこと、声をかけたい人ともまともに喋れなかった。
Mizuha paused for a second and stared at Yuki.
姉さんが来るまで友達らしい友達もいなかったの。父さんが警察に容疑をかけられて毎日肩身の狭い思いだった。姉さんが来て変わったわ。ここ数日は本当に楽しかったから。クラシックの鑑賞会。
そう。
あの後浅井くんとご飯食べてたんだよ。彼 A 型だって。全部姉さんのおかげだよ。昔から姉さんといるといつでも楽しかった。
Mizuha's direct, straightforward gaze became painful to Yuki.
雪だるまの名前覚えてる？
雪太郎でしょ。くだらない。
Mizuha laughed feebly.
また一緒に作りたいなって思ったら決心がついたの。私
Yuki's chest threatened to rip apart. Such was the pain. She desperately looked over Mizuha's whole body. Eyes, hands, feet, mouth. Not a part of her little sister told her she was lying.
いいのね、水葉。
Yuki prudently scrutinized her again.
父さんは世間で知られている以上に悪いことをたくさんしているの。姉さんたちだけじゃない。いつもうまいことやって切り抜けてきたみたいだけど、そろそろ報いを受けるべきなのよ。
Army
警
is
察じゃな
wondering
く
if
て姉さんに裁かれるならしょうがないと思う。
Part of me is wondering if Stockholm is already set in for Mizuha, but on the other hand, considering that this is Tokita, can we really argue Stockholm in this case? Considering how close she felt to her prior to all this already? Yuki could hear the infantile naivety in Mizuha's words. She was in an emotional tizzy due to the extreme situation. Saying one is willing to engage in cold, premeditated murder based on temporary emotion immediately raises a red flag. Most likely, Mizuha is actually hoping for a situation where both the director and Yuki could be saved. It's impossible for her to hide her soft heart from Yuki's senses.
でもどうしてだろうね。
Mizuha started with a touch of loneliness.
どうして私たちはこんなに違うの？
違う？
全然違うじゃない。見た目も雰囲気も話す言葉一つとっても違うわ。
そんなもの育った環境が違うからに決まってるじゃない。
そうだよね。そして姉さんは
Yuki realized Mizuha's tone had been growing more firm.
似ていたかったの？なぜ？
なんとなく姉妹だから。
血は半分しかつながってないのよ。
だから
今からそれすらも断ち切ろうとしているのよ。二人の唯一の共通点である父親を殺すのだから。
唯一？
あなたが言ったことじゃない。私たちはまるで似ていないわ。私はおしゃべりが好き。あなたは寡黙。私は現実的で水葉は夢見がち。何か似ているところがある？
One mustn't forget to mention that Yuki isn't an illegitimate child, while Mizuha was born into a proper family. There was a distinct gap there.
私人前だと姉さんの真似をして気ぐらいが高そうに振る舞っていたの。
Yuki laughed involuntarily.
バカね。自分を偽ったってすぐにわかるわよ。
うん、バカだった。今度からしない？
今度があると思うの？親を殺しておいて未来があるとでも？
Yuki reprimanded Mizuha harshly for tone, and her sister fell silent. Mizuha's fingers twitched faintly. She was getting cold feet. Yuki sighed and looked at her knees for a moment. As she suspected, this girl wouldn't be able to commit a crime. And Yuki would never be able to hurt her, the innocent child that she is.
資料が足りないわね、水葉。もういいわ。私を助けようだなんて軽々しく言わないで。
そんな、私は本気だよ。
いいのよ。さっきのは嬉しかった。私が困っているのをただ見ていられなかったのね。
本気だってば姉さんの力になりたいんだって。
無理しなくていいの。私に嘘は通じないってよく。
At that moment, a loud rapping echo resounded from the warehouse door.
おい、ユキ、ここを開けろ。
It was followed shortly by the voice of her mother's murderer. Director Shiratori shouted at the wall of the warehouse. He intends to become a hostage of his own volition. Are you sure you want to do this, sir? I talked briefly with him as I waited beside him. He might just be killed on the spot.
じゃあどうしろというのかね。娘を傷物にされて黙っていろとでも？
You're a good father. I think Tokiya disagrees. Now that I had a moment to look at him, I've realized he actually looked quite villainous. His sly, vulpine face was hideously warped. He's almost as tall as Gonzo, and no wonder, being Tokiya's father. But at the moment he looked withered and small. Tokia's voice came to us via Usami's cell phone.
今から扉を開けるわ。言っておくけど、下手な真似をしたら水葉の命はないわよ。聞いてるの、ハル。
もうやめよう、ユキ。
何を言い出すの？これからがいいところじゃない。
終わりにしようと言っているんだ。
何それ？
出てくるんだ。
話にならないわ。京介くん、聞こえてるんでしょ？
Yeah.
今、私は水葉の首に釘を突きつけている。
Yeah. If you open the door and we come charging in, you'll do her in.
じゃあ、準備はいい？
I looked at the director. He nodded from in front of the door.
開けるわよ。
ちょっと待て、ユキ。
Usami butted in once again.
少し時間が欲しい。もうちょっと待ってくれないか。
どうして？
頼む。
自分の立場を考えてよね。あなたの頼みを聞く理由がないわ。
とにかく理事長はそちらには渡さない。
Usami hung up on Tokita and stood in front of the warehouse door.
おい、君！
Move, Usami. I don't really care what happens anymore. You really should. I'm not Tokita or Shiratori's friend, and I'm definitely not a cop. Why do I have to go out on a limb for this? And why in the hell did I end up calling in Sonoyama men?
待ってください。まだユキが水葉を傷つけたという確証がないんです。
Hey, you saw the picture, didn't you? Why was Shiratori bleeding if Tokita didn't cut her?
わかりませんが、水葉がユキに協力したという可能性があります。
I realize that, but who on earth would go so far as to cut themselves?
ありえない話ではないです。
People like that only exist in fiction. Lies. You're grasping at straws so that you can keep trusting Tokita for some bizarre reason.
私が寒いのはこの際どうでもいいです。とにかくもう少し様子を見たいんです。
You heard her, sir. What do you think?
宇佐美君と言ったね。君はユキの友人だそうだが、一体何者なんだい？
私が何者であるかもこの際どうでもいいです。とにかく理事長、あなたが中に入ったら。
Usami's cell phone rings again. However, she showed no desire to answer it. Without Tokita's orders, the director wouldn't be able to enter the warehouse. For Christ's sake! Just do whatever the hell you want. I jerked my chin at the director. It's not like waiting around for this Katakura guy will hurt anything.
ユキは今すぐ私が中に入ってくることを望んでいるんだぞ。
I shrugged and waved him away. Oh, come on. She's not going to kill her if you don't go in there right this instant. That would be utterly stupid. Even if she tried. Worst case scenario, we break the window and rush in. It's not my problem that Shiratori's life is in danger. Still, Usami.
はい。
You may have pissed off our culprit, but am I right in assuming that it's a part of some strategy? And now I'm getting the silent treatment. What in God's name is she doing? Tokiya Yuki called Haru twice, but neither call was answered.
どうしたんだろうね。
Mizuha's fear got the best of her, and she decided to ask directly.
何があっても理事長を引き渡さないつもりね。まったく馬鹿げてるわ。犯人からの入電を無視するなんて。私が異常者だったらとっくに人質は殺されてるわよ。
姉さんは異常者じゃないよ。
そう思ってるつもりだけどね。
だって私のことは大事に思ってくれているもの。のりこ先生にも悪いと思ってるんでしょ？ 無関係な人を巻き込みたくはないからよ。
But Yuki did drag people into it. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and one never knows how far they'll go until they live the situation themselves.
またどこか怪我してみせようか。
やめなさい。
She answered immediately.
逆に怪しまれるわ。
Maybe. More importantly, Yuki didn't want to have to see her sister's blood.
春にはバレちゃったのかな。私がわざと怪我をしたって。
断定はできないはずよ。だからこそ彼らも窓からの突入をためらった。
The precariousness of the situation weighed on Yuki's mind. The greatest weakness of her position was the poor choice of hostage. As it stood, a proper negotiation was out of the question. Nevertheless, Haru should be out of options. For now, at least.
もう一度電話してみたら。
Mizuha was cooperative with Yuki to the bitter end. Yuki shook her head.
いいえ。向こうからかけてくるのを待つわ。
When that happens, Haru will have prepared some sort of scheme. There goes my advantage. The stalemate continued for 30 minutes. Usami just stared firmly at the warehouse with her arms folded the whole time, and the director must have smoked through a whole pack of cigarettes in agitation. Eventually, an unfamiliar luxury car pulled over, its engine roaring loudly. Director Shiratori greeted the man who stepped out of the driver's seat. Kawakura had finally arrived. He was a short man. The director briefed him on the situation, looking sharply downward into his eyes. Kawakura's small hands moved about restlessly as he did so. He wore thin glasses, as if to hide the brutal glow radiating from the eyes beneath them. Will Ichi be like that when he gets older? Nah, I don't think so. Nah. Kawakura looks a lot slyer than Ichi could ever be. I'm glad we agree on something for once. What's up, Usami? Just standing around, waiting for the sunrise? Your cell battery must be almost dead by now.
ですね。
Usami nodded, slipping in a glance at the director and Kawakura.
そろそろ勝負を決めましょう。
Her gaze pierced through me.
浅井さんは私が正義の味方か何かと思っていらっしゃいますね。
Sure. Though to be honest, I wish you'd stop waving that annoying justice around all the time.
そんなつもりは全くないんですよ。
Is that so?
今から説明するやり口を聞いたら納得してくださると思います。
You mean I won't think you're a hero of justice anymore?
はい。むしろ下道です。できることならこんなやり方はしたくなかった。でも他に方法が思いつきません。
Man, talk about a hook. You got me interested now.
しかも賭けの要素もあります。成功したとしてもユキが抵抗を諦めるという確証がありません。我ながら情けない話ですが。
Cut the hype and spill it already. Usami paused in hesitation, then continued.
お願いがあるんです、浅井さん。
What?
どうかユキを助けてもらえませんか？
Help her? What's she on about now? Define help. You mean you want me to capture her and hand her over to police? Or do you want me to kill her old man for her?
理事長も死なず、ユキも警察の厄介になることはない。
You want me to disappear her? So a fairy tale happy ending? Well, I guess I don't really want to explain this to the cops either.
分かってます。 浅井さんには関係のない話だというのは。ここまで付き合ってもらってありがとうございました。
What am I supposed to do now?
最後にもう一度だけ力を借りたいのです。
Oh, I doubt this is gonna be the last time I'll help you.
お願いします。
To be honest, if I stopped here, I'd probably have a hard time sleeping at night. The girl knows something about Mau. Tell you what, I won't leave until I get that story out of her. I think it would make a pretty nice gift for Gonzo.
ありがとうございます。
Let's just cut to this dirty plan of yours. I've known you for too long. I'm used to your dramatics.
嬉しいです。
God, this girl's disgusting.
私は未だにユキを信じています。水葉を含め無抵抗な人を傷つけたりはしないと。例えばいかに憎き理事長とはいえ、命乞いをされればユキも思いとどまるかもしれません。
You do?
そこで考えました。これは何とも危険な作戦です。しかも作戦を立てた私は安全という卑劣な。
Usami raised a finger and continued. Wow. Her ploy really was a monstrously risky gamble. At long last, the phone rang. It was Haru. Yuki, bracing herself against whatever trap Haru had set for her, answered the call.
待ちくたびれちゃったわよ。
ごめん、気持ちの整理がつかなくて。
言い訳はいいから、とっとと理事長を中に入れてもらえる？
それは。
The director's voice butted in.
わかった。ここを開けろ。
いいのね。ある？
ああ、やむを得ないという話になった。
Sounds like an act. Still, Yuki had to wait and see how things proceeded.
結構だわ。じゃあ入ってきてちょうだい。今から扉を開けるわ。
Yuki ended the call and walked into the warehouse's entrance.
姉さん、私はどうすれば？
あなたはもう必要ないわ。理事長が入ってきたら解放してあげる。
Mizuho shook her head obstinately.
姉さんの力になりたいよ。
なぜ？
だって今まで姉さんに何もしてあげられなかったから。姉さんに助けられるばっかりじゃ悪いよ。
Yuki objectively found that comment rather foolish. But nevertheless, it warmed her heart somehow.
とにかく私はここを動かないから。
Yuki turned again and went for the door, ignoring Mizuha as she stubbornly plopped herself on the ground. Immediately thereafter, I heard the sound of a latch being unlocked. The door slid open horizontally, and moonlight poured into the warehouse.
どうぞ。
Tokiya peeked out, letting only her face show, and gestured the director to come in. It would probably be dangerous to just jump in and rush Tokiya. She might be holding the nail to Shiratori's throat behind the door, out of sight. The director walked in, with fear written all over his face.
じゃあね。また連絡するわ。
Tokiya all but laughed as she quickly shut the door. In the end, this really was our only choice. Isami silently watched over the situation's development. What was Haru's objective? Yuki carefully invited the director into the warehouse.
父さん、助けて。私、死にたくない。
A voice called out from a spot on the floor behind Yuki. Mizuha was still managing to act her role. She sat on the ground with her arms behind her back, pretending to be tied up. After seeing that scene, the director gave up all thoughts of resistance.
両手を上げてちょうだい。下手な真似したらわかるでしょ。
姉さんの言うことを聞いて。
The director seemed to have given up completely, as he raised his arms in surrender. His worn, middle-aged hands were oozing with sweat.
片倉は来た？
ああ、つい先ほど。
じゃあ、後で呼ぶわ。
Yuki picked up a nearby crowbar.
さて、何か言い残すことがあれば聞くわよ。
すまなかった。マサミには悪いことをしたと思っている。
Yuki's mother's sacred name came out of that man's filthy lips. It sounded to her ears as if he'd soiled it.
あらあら、ずいぶん態度が小さくなったわね。前にも謝ってくれたけど、その時はふんぞり返ってなかった？
葬儀にも出られなかったのは私も悔やんでいたんだ。
お仕事が大変だったのね。
ああ、忙しくて。
お線香の一つもあげに来れないほど忙しかったのね。
Yuki mocked as her hatred erupted.
賄賂を受け取っている時間はあったのに。
The director flinched.
待て、私を殺して何になる？
There was a sly look in his eye.
こうは考えられないか、ユキ。私は確かに人格者ではない。そんな人間のために人生を棒に振ってどうするんだ？
そうね。それは何度も考えたわ。あなたを殺そうと思うたびに、そういう考えが袖を引いたの。あなたは私の母さんを殺しておいて罪に問われないのに、なぜ私だけ刑務所に入らなければならないのかって。
そうだろう。落ち着いて、もう一度考えるんだ。
The relieved look on his face tingled Yuki's sadistic heart.
だから、あなたを殺した後は、日本から脱出するつもりなの。
Her discussions with the Mau's acquaintances had revealed an escape route to her. There was a smuggling boat which made regular trips between Japan's west coast and the Korean peninsula. Fleeing the watchful eyes of the state would be extremely difficult, but not impossible. Covering her backside after this incident wouldn't be all that hard. Yuki's largest concern lied elsewhere. Mizuha. She had been tricked, and despite being taken hostage, still loved Yuki as a sister. Could she really live with herself if she turned that kind-hearted girl into the sister of a murderer? Society was plenty cold enough to the Shiratori household without a case of patricide. Yuki wouldn't be the only one here throwing her life away.
助けてくれ!
That pleading insect could never induce hesitation in Yuki. However, Yuki thought back on her painful memories of her mother. She had coughed blood until she died, all the while cursing the man who told her to go die in the cold. Yuki placed her mother's suffering and her concern for Mizuha on scales, anguishing over her inevitable decision. If she had known it would have turned out like this, she would have stayed away from Mizuha. Torrential guilt washed over her. The insectoid man before her seemed to be kind toward Mizuha at least. That's what made him enter the warehouse, despite knowing the danger to himself. If she kills that man, Mizuha will no doubt grieve for him. Yuki's hateful adversary was, in the end, Mizuha's beloved father. She looked down once more at Mizuha. She was wading in a river of sadness that grew deeper by the moment. the one threatening to burst the upstream dam, to bring tears of grief into the ever-smiling eyes of the Mizuha in her memories, was none other than Yuki herself. Would it be acceptable for her to rob this girl of her father? I ought to stop this, Yuki clearly thought. No, wait! She had idly glanced at Director Shiratori. In that glance, she had just barely caught a glimpse of him reaching for his pocket. That glimpse proved enough to allow her to avoid the attack by a hair's width. A sneak attack, huh? I stood next to Usami, watching over the warehouse with bated breath. What do you think, Usami?
何がです?
About what's going on in there? Aren't you worried things might go sour?
まだ何もわかりません.
This is a pretty drastic measure for you. I mean, I guess that means it might catch the kid off guard, but still.
ええ.
Sparks flew before her eyes. There was a static pop, like the sound of a discharging bug zapper as it kills a nearby moth. The director's hand closed in on her again. A black object, most likely some sort of taser, shot out at Yuki's face. She leaped to the side in a frantic second dodge. The rumbling roar of electricity rolled past her as she reoriented herself in the battle. Yuki hurled the crowbar she still gripped at her assailant as she put some distance between herself and the surprise attack. After getting enough ground to think calmly, Yuki scanned her surroundings for anything that could be used as a weapon.
やってくれるわね.
She mumbled between rough, distracted pants. That comment was directed at Haru. Yuki never expected she would try to use the hostage to take her down. As Yuki eyed her opponent, she realized his submissive aura had entirely disappeared. Director Shiratori was now grinning like a madman.
まったく、親子揃って聞き分けのない女だ.
He drew one step nearer.
最初からそのつもりだったのね.
娘のためだ.
よく言うわよ.
She had been careless. She looked down at her haggard attacker.
おかしいと思ったのよ. あなたは水葉の代わりになるためにここに来たのに、そんなことは一言も口にしなかった.
Now that she critically analyzes her memory of the director's entrance, she should have known this was coming. His eyes held some kind of plan, and his lips, stiff with fear, were smeared with flies.
私は水葉からあなたの悪口を聞いたことがないわ。だから油断してしまった。けれど、あなたのいいところも聞いたことがない。
Mizuha was too sweet to speak up, so she likely had been sitting on her dissatisfaction for years.
面の皮の厚い男ね。まったく。
The director laughed.
少しぐらい弁が立たねば警察も手を引かんよ.
He had managed to avoid prosecution for the recent bribery scandal, after all.
そうやって狡猾に立ち回った挙句、母さんに無実の罪を着せて追い出したのね。
何のことだか全くわからんな。ただ正美が出て行った年にはおかげで会社の保養所を建てることができたぞ。それについては正美の墓前で報告したいと思っている。
保養所という名の別荘でしょ。
It hadn't taken a genius to figure out that the money her mother supposedly embezzled had ended up in the director's pocket.
まったく、人として恥ずかしくないの？
立てこもり犯に人の道を解かれる筋合いはないが、別に言い訳はせんよ。会社経営には お前たち子供にはわからない苦労があるのだが、
How does
多くは語るまい。
How exactly does embezzling from your own company to buy yourself a private villa supposed to help with managing corporate affairs? Just out of interest?
下道の分際で何を余裕ぶっているのかしら。
子供にとって分かりやすい悪役でいてやろうという親心だよ。それとも私の身の上話でも聞きたいか？
結構よ。
Yuki knew that her biological father was also an illegitimate child. He had always hated his parents, and used that drive to build a company from the ground up with nothing but the clothes on his back.
ユキは昔から賢い娘だった。お前が再び私の前に現れた時、ただでは済まないだろうとは思っていた。
それはありがとう、お父さん。
しかし殺人はまずい。復讐はもっと法の網から逃れやすい形で行うべきだ。
Those few words perfectly defined Director Shiratori. He wasn't a greedy middle-aged buffoon, scared half to death of the police and the media's hounding. Neither was he a kind father, worried about his beloved Mizuha. He was a selfish, arrogant incarnation of evil.
さあ、もう諦めるんだ。表へ出よ。心配するな。警察に突き出したりはしない。娘が実刑を受けるのは忍びないからな。
呆れるわね。自分のスキャンダルをこれ以上増やしたくないだけでしょ。
Yuki's old curiosity idly wondered how a man with no sense of right and wrong became so powerful in society. Well, to give you the Cliff Notes version of that answer, society likes it when you produce results, and you produce a lot of results, whether it be involving enterprises, business enterprises, or any number of things really. You tend to get ahead in life. Problem is, depending on how far you want to go and how far you want to climb the ladder, you may have to kick a few other people off the ladder on the way up in order to get to the higher rungs. Know what I mean? It all depends on the environment you're in, the kind of person you are, and how you interact with the people that you meet on your way up the ladder. And, well, clearly this man has kicked a lot of people down the ladder to get to where he's at. Along with God knows what else.
こっちへ来い。
Weird analogy, I suppose, but I mean, well, my excuse is I'm a bit sleep deprived. Can't really think of something a little more coherent at the moment. He took another step toward her, taser brandished and ready. There was nowhere left to run. Yuki's back pressed against a crate. The taut tarp covering it crinkling as she tried to retreat further. Then, her eyes shot wide open. Mizuha screamed. She had jumped out from behind a crate. She desperately clung to the director's arm from behind him. After a short struggle, the black weapon in his hand fell to the ground with a clang. The powerful device which had given the director his brash confidence was now on the floor. He roared and thrashed, shaking Mizuha off in the process. However, Yuki was already holding the director by the collar. Cool air rushed past her flushed face. Her flawless shoulder throw hurled the director quite a ways. His spine hit the concrete floor hard. He fainted in agony, his mouth still hanging open from the pain of the impact. Yuki caught her breath and looked down at her father, crumpled on the floor like a caterpillar.
思い直したわ。やっぱりあなたを殺すって。
姉さん。
ごめんね、水葉。でもあなたも悪いのよ。こんな父親を野放しにしておいたんだから。
Guilt tore at Yuki's heart as she spoke. She knew Misa had no hand in these events, but Yuki was powerless to halt what had already been put in motion. Urged forward by her overwhelming hate, Yuki tied the director's arms behind him with a nearby rope.
よく考えたら私たちって姉妹じゃないじゃない。法律上の話ね。だから殺人犯の姉を持つってことにはならないじゃないの。私ったら何勘違いしてるのかしら。
何言ってるの？私たちは姉妹だよ。
そういうのはもういいわ。私たちは他人。助けてくれたのは感謝してる。
Yuki picked up the long, narrow nail she had mentioned earlier and crouched at the director's side.
さあ、教えてちょうだい。
Yuki's expression must have been drenched in cruelty, as the director's face quickly filled with unmistakable fear.
あなたは片倉に命じて家に火を放ったのよね。
Yuki's rage dragged her mind back to the night her house burst into flames. The floor and walls licked at the young Yuki with blazing red heat. Her mother fought against time and an unconquerable illness to stand up, lift a half-asleep Yuki, and jump out the window. Yuki cried in her mother's scorched arms.
言いなさい。殺すわよ。
She thrust a nail at the director's neck. He promptly confessed through frantic breaths.
そうだ。私の指図だ。当時金に困っていた片倉君に話を持ちかけたんだ。しかし放火までしろとは言っていない。本当だ。
The devil in Yuki's heart gorged on her wrath.
じゃあなんで火がついたんだ。
やめろ、本当だ。
He said, his tears and saliva splattering across the room.
片倉君が勝手にやった。信じてくれ。
姉さ
ん。うるさい。
Words could no longer reach Yuki, nor could her consideration to Mizuha, or her guilt toward Haru. Even her gratitude to and love for her foster father blew away into the storm of rage within her. That fierce wind took everything from Yuki, until all that remained was an empty shell, one waiting for the awakened demon within her to fill the vacancy her fast-fleeing soul left behind. Yuki punched the director in the face. After shaking his tears and saliva off her hand, she picked up her phone. There's another person I have to kill. The call was quickly answered.
どうしたんだユキ。理事長を引き渡したら水葉を解放してくれる約束じゃなかったのか。
What a smartass. After giving the director that dangerous weapon, she has the nerve to act so innocent. Yuki laughed. Haru was a hypocrite after all.
ちょっとトラブルがあってね。でももう水葉には用はないから安心して。
Despite her voice, which still dripped with the flames of adrenaline, Yuki's mind was as cool as ice.
片倉が来てるらしいじゃないの。中に入れてもらえるかしら。あ、そう。嫌なんだ。じゃあこの人間のクズを殺すわ。
Yuki feared she might actually kill him on the spot, unconcerned about the consequences.
落ち着けユキ。分かった。片倉さんも納得してくれている。
もう小細工はなしよ、ハル。あまり怒らせないでちょうだい。
ああ。
Yuki stood at the warehouse entrance once more.
開けるわよ。
Perhaps Yuki's anger had robbed her of her cool. She realized she was about to open the door without bringing along the hostage as a shield. What if they rush in as soon as I open the door? However, it was a needless worry. The sea breeze flew in. A short man stood not an arm's length away from her. He wore a suit and thin glasses. Yuki immediately pulled the man to her chest, using her right arm. Her left hand wielded the nail. The moment she pushed the nail against Katakura's neck, a voice rang out against her. I shouted the second Tokita reached out for the man at the door. Now, Usami! This was her best chance, seeing as Tokita had defenselessly opened the door.
Hi!
I held the warehouse door open to keep her from shutting it. Tokita's eyes opened wide. She wrapped her arm around her new hostage's neck from behind, holding him as a human shield. Her left hand held a glittering, long nail. She began a slow retreat. I waved my hand, signaling the Soniyama recruits to advance. They rushed into the warehouse after Usami and Tokita. As I ducked in after the last of our raiding team entered the warehouse, I noticed a few cars in distance heading this way. Yakuza men ignored Yuki's warning as they charged into the warehouse, one after the other. They kept a distance of about 5 yards from Yuki. They had her surrounded, forming a semicircle around her as she backed against the wall. Each one of them teemed with rage and exuded enough overwhelming force for Yuki to smell it. She addressed the leader of the pack, her old friend.
ああ、これが最後の手段だった。
呆れるわね。よく考えてごらんなさい。状況は何も変わっていないのよ。
Yuki forced out a composed smile.
私は人質を取っている。今にも殺すことができる。
To be honest, even with the impending threat, this situation was more favorable than when Mizuha was her only hostage. The man squirming in her arms, the one called Katakura, was despicable enough to warrant at least 2 bloody deaths.
ユキ、落ち着け。
落ち着いてるわよ。
Indeed. She could take this man's life without so much as a quivering fingertip right now.
頼む。もうこんなバカなことはやめてくれ。私はユキが大好きなんだ。
大好きなら魔王のことを教えてくれてもよかったじゃない？
すまない。下手に話したら迷惑がかかると思ったんだ。
気遣いありがとう。おかげですれ違ったわね。
Yuki's arm tightened around Katakura's neck. She used excessive force for such a small hostage. Madness fueled her strength to heroic, demonic proportions. She glanced at the director on the floor.
火に油を注いだわね、あれ。
何？
一時はね、復讐なんてやめようかとも思ったのよ。
Mizuha stood stone still, dumbfounded. She was obviously failing to comprehend the current situation.
外道の父親を持っているだけでも肩身が狭いのに。その上、人殺しの姉まで加わったらいくらなんでもかわいそうでしょ。
In stark contrast to her words, Yuki's conscience was silent. All blame laid with Haru.
あなたが理事長をけしかけなかったらハッピーエンドだったのにね。大した勇者様だこと。
Haru's face grew grave. She looked at the director with narrowed eyes, full of anger. It's too late for regrets, Haru.
分かった。 私が代わりに人質になろう。
冗談はやめてよ。確かにあなたには失望したけれど、それでもあなたを殺す理由はないわ。
そうか。
人質には人質たる理由がいるの。
Yuki stated the obvious. There was no reason to put up with Haru's begging any longer.
さあ、道を開けてちょうだい。
ユキ。
それとも何？片倉を見殺しにしてでも私を捕まえる？言っておくけど、少しでも変な動きを見せたらその場で殺すわよ。何の遠慮もないわ。
Nevertheless, Haru refused to stand down.
何度でも言おう。その人を離すんだ。お前を人殺しにはさせない。
いい加減にしてよな。
Yuki sighed, then suddenly felt something amiss about this situation. Haru's behavior was odd. She was standing tall, staring straight at her opponent. It wasn't a very typical attitude when faced with defeat. Why? Why? Was she bluffing? Yuki felt that she could read Haru flawlessly after the time they spent together. Yet much to her confusion and discomfort, Haru showed no signs of lying. How on earth does she plan on turning this situation around? Yuki attempted to calm and cool her mind as it raged in a storm of madness. Wait a second. She focused on the men surrounding her. Each of them bore a malevolent air. They looked as though they might pounce at any second. Wait, what are they waiting for? Yuki, now in a panic, reflexively turned to look at the back of Kaakura's head.
その人は片倉さんじゃない。
Oh, is it me?
その山組の方だ。
Oh no.
浅井さんにお願いして協力してもらった。
Her color's different. Yuki had no time to be dumbfounded. Nevertheless, her usually talkative mouth refused to move. That's why the Yakuza had hesitated. If Kaakura's life were on the line, there would be no reason for these men to restrain themselves. They kept back because the hostage was one of their own.
俺にも家族がいるんだ。勘弁してもらえねえかな、嬢ちゃん。
Yuki's hostage, the man she thought was Kaakura, spoke to her in the thick dialect of the underworld. All Yuki could do was mindlessly stare at Haru.
人質には人質たる理由がいる。そうだろう、ユキ。
By the way, Tokira, I took a step forward. Usami didn't order the director to attack you. The director keeps a taser on him at all times. Shiratori told me about it when we had dinner together the day before yesterday. The guy's pretty shady all around, if you ask me. I'd interrupted Tokita's sarcasm earlier to mean that the director launched a surprise attack against her. That was an unbelievably stupid move.
さあユキ、その人を離すんだ。頭のいいお前ならわかるだろ。その人を殺しても何の意味もないんだ。
It was quite a dirty trick for Usami. Its outcome depended on Tokita's mental state. If we were less than careful, or even just unlucky, our stand-in might have been killed. He might be unrelated to Tokita's revenge, but he's still a hostage. As Usami said, there's no guarantee that Tokita will surrender now.
もし私が無関係な人を殺すことも厭わなかったらどうするの？
Tokita knew as well as I did that Usami believed in her.
ユキにそんな真似はできない。
Usami declared that belief with conviction, and Tokita flinched and looked away in response.
このままこの人を人質に逃げ出したらどうするの？
This time I responded. How exactly do you intend to do that? Are you planning on driving out of here? There's no way a piddly little nail could keep one of our men docile, let alone while the person holding it is watching the road.
そうね。どう考えても
I could tell Tokia's grip on the man had loosened a bit.
私の負けを疑ってごめんね、ハル。
Well, damn. That was very risky. This maneuver that you just pulled, Sami. Risky, but damn if it didn't pay off. You're probably gonna feel shit about this soon enough. I'm quite certain of that, since it's a pretty unheroic thing that you just did. But I mean, gotta give yourself props for managing to outsmart Tokita at least, if nothing else. Anyway, I really hate to do this, but I gotta cut things off here. And I guess we'll see how this whole thing will finally resolve itself in the next episode. But considering where we are in this whole affair, I'm assuming we'll also start the next chapter, or next chapter, or part of the main story, or whatever, soon after. With all that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of The Devil on G-String. If you did and you want to see more content from me, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I will see you all next time. Take care.